Good evening, everyone. We are here for a city council meeting on Tuesday, January 17th, 2017. We'll start with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom. Here. Drew. Here. Solomon. Here. Scott. Here. Doyle. Estes. Laurenti. Here. Wright. Here. Modrick. Here. Roberts. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And now we'll have the invocation by Pastor Brad Clausen, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Before I pray, I just want to say how grateful and thankful I am to live in Rapid City. Let's pray. Father, I am grateful and I am thankful for this city. I am thankful that there are firemen and policemen and city workers and people on the committees and people here tonight who are willing to give up their time to serve the rest of us. And I ask, Father, for a spirit of encouragement upon them. I pray that your spirit would guide them, that wisdom and courage and strength would be given to them and those who work for us here in this city. I pray, Father, that your peace would be here and that harmony would be here, and that as we have differences, we could work them out. Father, you know that there are many places in the world where such a peaceful gathering doesn't take place. And I'm grateful that we're here in a place where your Spirit has given us the ability to work out our differences in openness and in honesty. And I do pray that all would be in a spirit of peace tonight. And I ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. States of America, which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Now we will adopt the agenda. Any council members have any changes to the agenda, or if not, can we have a motion? I have a motion to adopt from Scott and a second by Solomon. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. And now I'm going to come down front for a minute while we recognize our Veteran of the Month. Could Jace Oldfield join me up front, please, and Mrs. Oldfield, too? It's a privilege to get to recognize a United States military veteran. Tonight, we're recognizing Jace Oldfield in partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission for the January 2017 Veteran of the Month. Jace Oldfield joined the United States Army on September 12, 2001, the day after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. I wonder how many other people did that. Probably thousands.
Quite a few, sir.
It's a big deal. It was a very motivating moment. He served our country for 12 and a half years, doing what he was passionate about, military police investigations. His entire time of service was performed with a purpose and with a passion. He learned determination, respect, discipline, and perseverance. Mr. Oldfield is very committed to the armed forces to this day. He shares his story of living through post-traumatic stress disorder to empower and enrich the lives of other wounded veterans. He has gone through 4 spinal surgeries, but makes a daily effort to stay positive and always believing the best is yet to come. He states he would re-enlist today if he had the opportunity. Even though he is no longer able to serve on active duty, he serves as fellow servicemen in other ways. He is a member of the Wounded Warrior Project's alumni and volunteers on Fridays to read stories to the 5th grade class at South Park Elementary. During his military career, Mr. Oldfield was decorated and awarded the Afghanistan Campaign Medal with 2 stars, Army Commendation Medal, 4th Award, Army Achievement Medal, 2nd Award, Army Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Service Medal, 2nd Award, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, 2nd Award, and the Iraq Campaign Medal with Campaign Star. Mr. Oldfield has been serving our country since 2001 with dedication and sacrifice, making him an excellent Veteran of the Month. His example of service makes him deserving of this honor, and we'd like to extend our gratitude. Thank you, sir. Okay. Would you like to say anything? Okay. Okay. And we have a certificate here and a free sandwich and the company coffee mug. And so we'll get you to hold this and we'll take a picture, okay? Next item on our agenda is executive session, which we will not be needing tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Ron Jeffries here. Is someone from Black Hills Talk Show here? Oh, anyone seen Ron Jeffries?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for giving us a few minutes tonight. Just wanted to, first of all, thank you, Councilwoman Modrick and Mr. Mayor, for coming to the ribbon cutting last Friday and sharing those fine words. I can tell you it was well received amongst the rural people that were in attendance, so appreciate you coming back out and extending that warm welcome from Rapid City to the first part of the stock goers that came to Rapid City. Very brief, I know you've got a full agenda tonight, so I wanted to start with 1958, which is part of the briefness, Mr. Mayor. So 1958, a group of Rapid City people from the Chamber Ag Committee met over at the Rapid City Laundry, which is now part of Serval. And they formed the first ever stock show. It was held in 1959, 3 breeds of cattle. They held it in the Soule building at the fairgrounds. Fast forward, we hit the 70s, the Civic Center was built, the rodeo came to town, we brought the entire stock show up to the Civic Center, and the event exploded, became a national event. Very well recognized, worked its way up to being one of the most prestigious stock shows in the nation. Fast forward into the middle of 2000, we added an event center down at the fairgrounds, and when we put the James Kerstead Event Center back on the list of venues available for the stock show, attendance at the Black Hills Stock Show doubled again. So right now we run right around 300,000 people that come through the Black Hills Stock Show and Rodeo throughout the 3 weeks that we have here, which ranks us 4th in the nation amongst all stock shows for attendance. Number 1 is Houston, then Fort Worth, and then Denver, the National Western, and then Rapid City, South Dakota. The one thing we do rank number 1 in is the highest percentage of pickups that come to the stock show. So we're very proud of that. So last year at the end of the stock show, we had 4 different groups that came to us and said, we'd like to be part of your show, which is an amazing thing because in the stock show world, to have these events continue to grow, it's how you stay alive, how you grow. We were able to accommodate the Longhorns during their cattle show during the Central States Fair, and 2 of the other groups, the World Series of Team Roping and the South Dakota Cutting Horse Association asked if we'd extend the pre-stock show events another week so that they could be included under the umbrella of the Black Hills Stock Show. They felt that there was some prestige in being included in that. We did. Those things kicked off Friday, which meant the stock show went from January 13th to February 5th. Official dates, when we get everything rolling down at the Civic Center, will be January 27th. We just wanted to extend an invitation out to you to come join us for any of the activities we have. If you want a backside tour, we'd be glad to give you that too. It is a very interesting event and really a great economic impact. Estimates between $20 and $30 million a year that generated because of the show in Rapid City. One other interesting aspect that I heard today was that the ag dollar rotates 3 times in any community, whereas an oil or a gas dollar typically rolls just twice in a community, which I thought was very interesting. But official dates, January 27th through February 5th. We'll have a full schedule of events online at blackhillstockshow.com. We'd like to extend an invitation to you, and you'll also be seeing an invite come through your email for a social that we're having the last Friday during part of the art auction. So with that, thank you for giving me a few minutes, and hope you all come out and join us for the 59th annual Black Hills Stock Show and Rodeo. Thank you.
Thank you. Having an interactive council meeting tonight. That's good. Okay, next on the agenda, general public comment. A time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by a unanimous vote of the city council members present. And first, we'll hear from Mr. Kurt Small. And there's a few speaker requests tonight, and there's a 3-minute time limit. Thank you.
Thanks. Like the mayor said, my name is Kurt Small. I've had the privilege of operating the Elks Theater since 1994 and owning it since 2008. Thanks for the chance to speak to you guys tonight. I'm here to express some concerns that I have. Over the last 3 to 4 months, there's been a noticeable increase in the aggressiveness of downtown panhandlers and vagrants. In the last 3 months, I've had 2 physical altercations in my lobby with individuals. I have employees that have to call me from their car when they arrive to work so that they can get escorted in because there's individuals waiting outside their vehicle for them to get out. And I have a ton of examples like that. It crescendoed on Sunday night when we had 3 separate cases of individuals coming in and disrupting my business. 2 of them were violent. The last one actually came back and kicked in 3 of my front doors to the tune of about $3,000. I'm not so concerned about the cost of repairing that, but I do have some serious concerns for the safety of my customers and my staff. I don't feel that it's a nuisance any longer. I truly think it's a public safety issue. I wish I could come before you guys and give you solutions or answers. I have spent some time investigating what other cities have done with some success. Some of those things might be applied in Rapid City. Some of them might not be, but I do think that there are solutions out there. If anybody would like me to share with them some of the solutions that I've found, I would be happy to do that. But I just really wanted council to be aware that it is getting worse in a big hurry. I'd also like to add, this isn't a summer issue. I know that the police department does a bike patrol downtown during the summer months, which does help. But in my opinion, it gets worse in the winter months than it is in the summer months. And I'd just like to reiterate, I do think this is a public safety issue now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Bob Fuchs.
Hi, I'm Bob Fuchs with the Firehouse Brewing Company. And as Kurt said, we've done some work in the past to try to work with the police chief and the mayor to try to get some resolve and some work done with the vagrancy issue downtown. And it has gotten out of hand. It's so ridiculously out of control. It's a daily issue at the firehouse. Every day we deal with this. I do want to thank the police chief, because when we did approach him last April, the police chief and the mayor, they worked on it. They brought people in from the schools. When the schools closed, things did happen, but it did not solve anything. It's just as bad as it's ever been. I call dispatch at least weekly because of issues. Typically, it's either someone out front panhandling, but the big thing is they're getting very aggressive. And we always, I shouldn't say always, we nightly have people behind the firehouse in the alley drinking and causing issues back there. And we're always kicking them out. TripAdvisor, we had a TripAdvisor from one of our guests this summer. Firehouse is a great place. Don't go down to Rapid City at night, it's far too scary. That person lived in Chicago. Last night, Kurt called me, I think it was Monday, and asked me to come speak tonight, and I was a bit reluctant because I didn't want the media attention on this issue. But we've now gotten to the point where I think it's so out of hand, so be it. Everybody knows it's scary down there now. Last night, after Kurt and I was a little reluctant to come speak, last night at 8:30, we were robbed at the firehouse. The winery, 2 vagrants came in, they took 2 bottles of wine. When the staff confronted them, she was told, "Get back, I will cut you. Maybe I should just shoot you." We called dispatch, explained what happened. They're so busy, and this is such commonplace, and we're now so used to it, we never even got a reply that night. We had a downtown master plan. The master plan, one of the things it said, and it was presented to all of us here, safety is the biggest issue for the downtown. I shouldn't say biggest, it was one of the biggest on that. But yet Dan Sefner and the downtown bid board, they made a proposal to increase lighting, to do some safety things. They did it with the, through the Vision Fund, and it was ignored. We got to quit ignoring this. This this problem is a definite problem, and we got to start getting a plan together and doing something about it instead of ignoring it. Lastly, on the way over here, 10 minutes ago, I was confronted in front of Prairie Edge, 5 guys openly drinking right in front of Prairie Edge. We've just made this such a commonplace now that nobody even cares. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Bauman.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My husband and I are from Negebauers, and we're here to speak on the same subject. And it is becoming, as was said earlier, pretty much out of control. I have staff every day. We call. Barely a day goes by that we don't at least have to call once, sometimes several times, of people fighting, people being aggressive, people bothering our customers. We have to walk customers to and from their cars because they feel threatened. I installed 2 security systems. We put $5,000 into our outside security systems this year so that the whole corner could be viewed. Last night at 8:37, somebody broke one of our windows. The price of the window makes it a felony. They did catch them. While we were looking for the video of the problem last night, we also caught fighting on the corner. We also caught public urination on the corner. This is 8:30 at night, when people are coming to our central business district to have dinner, to enjoy themselves, to be at Main Street Square, and it's a serious problem. If we don't address it, it will become beyond that point where we can address it. Chicago was brought up. I moved here from Chicago. When I left Chicago to now, it's incredibly different. It's gone back 15 years in time. Do we want that to happen here in Rapid City? I didn't live here when it was that bad, but I've been told by several people that it feels like we're going back to those days. And we're just asking for help. We'd like the opportunity to speak. We'd like the opportunity to be a part of change. But change is inevitable. It's going to continue, and it's going to change to the worse, or we take control and we make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Burgess.
Hi, I'm Nick Burgess from Michael's Menswear. I'd just like to thank you guys for giving us a chance to talk about this. I'd like to echo what Bob and Curtis said. We're having tremendous issues downtown. We have probably 2 or 3 incidents every week, and 3 of the people that were involved with Curtis's window kicking incident actually were also hassling my boss, the owner, Mike Convoin. Excuse me. Sorry. What I'd like to say is that I think that during the winter there's a lack of policing because during the summer the bicycle police, I think, are very effective at keeping a lot of the riffraff at bay. However, probably at least once a month I'll see someone being hassled by some vagrants, and I'll actually have to leave the store, and a lot of times I'll give them refuge in the store and give that person time to walk away, whatever it takes. It's really about all I have to say. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I received a couple contacts from people downtown on this very issue the last few days. And I even went down and talked to one of the employees at one of the businesses, and that employee absolutely felt threatened in the events that occurred. I'm going to ask that we just think about this for a few minutes, and we need some immediate action. I don't know what it is. We need to be discussing it immediately. We need to take aggressive action, whatever that can be. Some of it can be short-term, some is going to be long-term. Whatever we got to do, we have got to take this under control. If we do not, we're going to see the condition denigrate to a point where we're going to start losing business downtown, and we're going to see ourselves going, just like she said, in reverse. I think this is an extremely serious situation. I have noticed some of these myself, and I've went up to people and, as he said, rescued them from being panhandled and hustled. And I know I can sense danger when I've been down there, and I have sensed it and I have seen it. And it isn't just a casual, I need $1. It's worse than that. So I'm going to leave it up to council, but I think you absolutely have to take action now and soon and in the near future. Thank you.
I think before we take any more comment, we should decide if we're going to put this on the agenda or not.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to put this item on the agenda by Laurenti and a second by Wright. And in order to put it on the agenda, we'll take a unanimous vote. All in favor of placing this on the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items on the agenda. Okay, we'll make this item 2A. We'll just take care of it right now. Okay, so for the item for discussion, downtown security. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will make a motion that we form a task force with the police department and some downtown businesses and anybody else you may deem worthy that need to be part of the conversation on how to deal with this issue. If I could get a second and retain the floor.
Second.
And if I could ask the police chief a question?
Yes.
Chief, sorry I didn't run the idea by you, just kind of thought of it. Can you tell me some things that we're trying to do right now to take care of this issue? And I know that this might be a symptom of a bigger problem, but are there some things we can do in the short term to help alleviate the issues these business owners are facing?
Let me start by giving you a little bit more details regarding what happened this weekend that initiated the current interaction with Mr. Small and the other business owners that have come forward today.
Chief, we're on Mr. Solomon's time, so maybe he would rather have an answer, and then we can call on you separately.
Okay. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What are some things we can do in the short term that you see to help alleviate some of these challenges? And what do you think of the task force idea?
The homeless issue in Rapid City, I agree. The population has clearly grown. That's very apparent if you go to the Cornerstone Rescue Mission, especially during a mealtime, and you'll see that they don't even have enough space to serve everybody at once. They have to kind of filter in and out. And then, add on to that the Hope Center that's downtown as well. So this is a very deep-rooted issue, and I want to say that there is a lot of effort being put forth, especially with the leadership of Collective Impact, and I think that it is important that we as a community really support that effort, and I'm on limited time, so I have a lot more information that I'd like to share.
Well, so I think that's we have some long-term challenges that some of our initiatives are going for. I'm wondering if there are methods such as adding, more patrols downtown or anything in the short term, just as we work towards our long-term solutions. Are there some short-term things we can do to improve public safety downtown?
Ideally, if we could add additional people and have somebody on every corner downtown, I think that we would be able to prevent these types of things from happening. However, the issue in this case, and in most of our cases with our downtown vagrants, is a lack of community resources. We're unintentionally utilizing the criminal justice system to warehouse people for very short periods of time, and that does not result in changing behavior. So, I could reallocate our resources from investigations or other places to focus on the downtown area. In doing so, I've got to tell you that just in the last 30 days, we've had 2 major homicide investigations and other things happening. So it's a resource issue. It's a balance issue. I want to point out that the City Council very graciously approved 8 additional FTEs for this calendar year. We're in the process of filling those positions, and I think that in and of itself is one big step towards addressing these issues. The other thing that the City Council did earlier this year is when myself and the sheriff brought forward a request for $900,000 to support the detox expansion at the former NAU campus on Kansas City Street, the City Council has came up with the funding for that. So I think that it's a complicated approach, but for the short-term solution, we might be able to take somebody out of play for one night, but we can't do that over and over every single night and essentially babysit the homeless, intoxicated population of our city.
Okay, I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor, and if I may, I'd like to ask the Chief some questions as well, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Chief, I don't know if I was talking as well, so I apologize. I don't know if I heard you say you think the task force is a good idea, or do you not?
I think that would, I think anybody that is interested in joining in this effort should collaborate with the collective impact process. And I'll tell you that I believe it's a week from Thursday, not this Thursday, but next Thursday, there will be a presentation at the Doll from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in which the collective impact organization and I believe the Vakurovich Foundation have supported Dr. Gonzalez from San Antonio to pitch the Haven for Hope model. And I think that if we're able to support that effort, and if business owners are interested in engaging with that process, I think it could change this condition long term for our city. I agree that there needs to be change.
Thank you. What can we do now? If you were going to react to this today, what would you do today?
First off, I just want to say that when you're a victim of crime, it's very emotional. I've been a victim of a property crime myself before. So, Mr. Small, I do sincerely feel sorry for the situation that you're in, and I understand that it's a repeated situation. I think it's most important that you follow through with the State's Attorney's Office and the victim advocates that are going to allow you the opportunity to make an impact statement to the court system so that we can hold this offender accountable. I can tell you that based on his history, that's something that hasn't taken place. I'll tell you that our department has arrested this specific individual 21 times in the last 4 years. We've taken him to detox 15 times. We've taken him to the hospital numerous times. That's our department. Yeah. That's separate from the fire department's interactions with him.
Chief, I'm sorry, but I get where you're going with that, but I have some pointed questions. So I just want to know, do you think it's a problem, and is there something we can do today? Is there something we could start doing tomorrow with some of the patrols that go to certain neighborhoods that don't have near the risk in the number of calls? Can we do periodic and interval sweeps downtown where those particular patrols who are typically in a neighborhood that has less issues, that they could maybe go on foot for a half hour for a certain sector of the downtown and then go back to their regular patrol? That's what I'm looking for, is what can we do with the resources we have today and try to get more of a presence downtown, because what I'm hearing is during the summer there's more of a presence, it's less of a problem. So I'm trying to just drill down to what we can do, the cause and effect situation. Is there some way we can get some patrol cars to share time or certain periods of time in the downtown area and maybe get out of their vehicle, patrol a specific block or blocks, if you will, and then go back to their regular patrols? Can we do something like that, or do you think that that is too reactionary?
We can do a focused effort in a certain area for a short period of time. We can't sustain something like that long term. I will tell you that all of the recommendations that you just mentioned are things that we do. I can tell you also that our staff has been in touch with downtown business owners, including Mr. Small, and we've already engaged staff regarding the current issues that recently occurred. We have briefings with all of our staff before they begin their patrol shift, and we essentially go over what's occurred in the last 24 hours. And so that causes us to pay more attention to where the current issues are.
Okay.
The downtown homeless issue, that is a constant issue. I mean,
so what I'm wondering, though, is with our current resources, it sounds like if we can make it less attainable, less easy for people to be drinking at 8 o'clock at night when people are downtown eating, typically, these restaurants, that's when people are either finishing eating or they're just showing up to eat. It would seem to me that we could clean sweep the area, or do we just drive through the area? Is that what you're counting as you're already doing this? Because what I would like to see, and I don't know, I mean, you're the expert, but what I want to know is what can we do differently? Because whatever we're doing today isn't getting it done. So I'm hoping that through this task force that we're going to come up with something different that uses our current resources and makes a difference than what we're doing right now, because what we're doing right now obviously isn't working real well. And I'm not blaming you, Chief. I understand that we all have a limited amount of resources, but it would seem to me if there's some opportunity to take some of those resources that are seeing less of a problem and we can get more of a presence in the areas where we need it, and maybe like say you're doing that, and maybe I'm just speaking to the wind because I'm an elected official and I'm up here, but it sounds like to me there's something we need to do different so that we get a different outcome. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
I'm going to just chime in for a minute in case you want something to think about while you're waiting for your turn to talk. I think Mr. Laurenti's kind of hit the nail on the head. We need something different. This is a police resource problem. And there's also the consideration of turning the downtown into a police state where you have a policeman on every corner. That's the only way to prevent this from happening, and then you won't prevent all of them. So if we want to do something different and creative, then I think the council could allocate a couple $100,000 to go toward the hiring of private security guards who do not take a 9-month training cycle to get from hiring to on the street. They don't have to go into other parts of town where it's more busy. Methamphetamine, for one example, is stealing resources away from problems like this. And this is just the beginning. It will get much, much worse if we don't get some intervention in the methamphetamine area specifically. That brings with it violence and all kinds of other issues. So if we want to talk about something, think about something to do tonight. If you want to do something tonight, allocate some money and we can contract with some private security guards for downtown patrol. Now, next, Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. When I was listening to these problems and to echo some of the things that you just said about private security, you know, the library has had this problem for a long time, and they went ahead and did hire private security. I'm not suggesting that that's the only answer, but if you want something right away, I think this is what we could look at. It certainly has helped the situation at our library. Walking police routes, I think, would help as well. They don't have to be on every corner, but I think if they're present downtown, it might have an effect that we want. And also, we're looking at an influx of people in the next 2 weeks for the stock show. I'd really like to show Rapid City in a really good light, and it doesn't sound like that's going to happen unless we make some kind of movement tonight. But if your private business is being impacted by this, you might want to think about some security of your own. And, you know, the city will try and help, but, you know, library took steps to do it on their own, and it helped. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. The downtown patrol idea sounds like something that we could do fairly immediately. Of course, it takes dollars to do so. Where I'm concerned with the business owners, they have choices of where they can have their businesses, and they've chosen to be in the heart of Rapid City, which is the downtown area. It's vital to our community. It's vital to them and the employees that work there for them, and it's vital for our tourism as well. So if we have the word scary coming out of our business owners as far as their words, we need to act on that. That means that it's pretty immediate if the word scary is coming out. I think we've all, if we've been downtown, I'm downtown quite a bit, haven't been experiencing the same thing, and we are a bit ignorant because we love our town and we say, okay, well, you know, does everybody have a right? Sure, we have a right, but we've got to fix the problem. And if it takes money, and this is this urgent, and I'm seeing this truly, which is why we put this on the agenda, as an urgent need, it's a cry for help, and it's a cry for help now. We've got to do it because they could go to other locations. There's crossings all over that are being developed right now in and around the city, but it will take away from the heart of downtown. And I think enough of us have been here when the heart of downtown had some boards up on them, and we certainly don't want scary to lose a business. It's the heart of Rapid City. So I'm in absolute favor with the fact that if we need to do something now, maybe it's the task force that we've got on the table to vote on, but the action needs to take place. I don't want to see this 6 months. I know we have the Rapid City Collective Impact, which is going to be an amazing project for the city of Rapid City, but it takes time. That one's a long-term investment, and we need a now investment for the people that are here and for those that haven't been able to come into the room. So I would encourage that we do look at something and we look for the now, because we're in downtown destination dining week right now. We've got people we're inviting downtown to Rapid City to see the best of the best, and with the other events coming. So it's my feeling that we need to make action. We need to get involved, and we never have enough money, but we better find something that we can do to retain the heart of Rapid City. Thank you.
Want me to take you out of turn? Or? John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I wouldn't have minded if Mr. Wright had spoke before me. I do want to thank the business owners for bringing this forward in force, because that's what gets things changed. When multiple people come in, I know this has been an issue for quite a while, and I thought it was a little more sporadic than this. I didn't realize everybody downtown was experiencing so much of it. Unfortunately, I don't spend as much time downtown as maybe I should. I have a good friend that just moved their business out of downtown, and they said one thing I never thought I would hear, being a lifelong resident of Rapid City. I feel safer being in North Rapid than I do in downtown Rapid City. And North Rapid's my ward, so I do want to thank the police department for making it safer in my ward. But, you know, I think that we put those resources downtown in the summertime, more resources downtown in the summertime. If we can do it then, why can't we do it all year round? I guess that's my question.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. The strategy that we use during the summer months is we take our 6 school liaison officers that are assigned to schools for the summer months, and so they are full-time assigned to the schools.
Thank you. And one other question I have for you, Chief, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, if I ask the Chief another question. You know, tonight we're going to be probably authorizing the comprehensive analysis for the fire department. Would that be beneficial for the police department if we did a comprehensive analysis of the PD too?
I would tell you that we have built in that process, or a very similar process, through our accreditation standards. We are the only agency in the state of South Dakota that is accredited. And so every 3 years, and now they're just transitioning to 4 years, we do have a comprehensive review of our department that includes public engagement, and it includes outside experts that come in and review our policies, procedures, and interview members of the public.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, Mayor, make I'll start off with making a substitute motion, and the reason I need to explain a little bit on my motion, if I may, Mayor, make a substitute motion.
You can want to make the motion, and then if you get a second, you can explain it.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is make a substitute motion that we hire a private security firm for downtown area for 1 month, and the funding come from the council contingency fund.
Second. Okay, we have a second to that motion by Darla Drew. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to disregard the idea of taking on or doing a task force as well, but I think if we can get this security firm hired, such as what Alderwoman Drew explained, what is taking place in the library, it's been very beneficial. The other areas have used private security firms as well. So I'm suggesting just hire them for 1 month, get us started, allow us to get the task force started up in the meantime so they can address the short-term, medium-range term issues, and then the task force can also take on the long-range issues. And I also support the idea of taking this to the collective impact. and using the Mr. Gonzalez coming up from Texas to do the concept that they're using in their municipality. So I don't want to, I would like to see us do the 1 month just to start with from the council contingency fund, and then allow the task force to continue their efforts as well.
Okay, Jerry Wright. Oh, sorry.
I understand there's only one substitute, and I believe I can make another substitute on top of that. Is that true?
I don't know. Joel, any
I have a
limit to
motion and a
substitute motions?
substitute. I want to make a substitute to substitute.
I don't think there's any.
Friendly agenda?
So I have to eliminate the substitute motion, go back to the original motion to substitute it then.
Okay, I'll talk about what I want to do then, can I? Without a motion?
Your time.
I think 1 month is not long enough, and I would really recommend that we allocate $200,000 to be used at the discretion of the mayor and the police chief to allocate either private security and or overtime for our police department. And I think we have no choice. 1 month isn't long enough. And we're not going to, I don't know, we haven't specified any amount of money. I think that, if I might share, I know when we have a fire, like a wildland fire, we spend overtime. Put it out. I think that the mayor's absolutely right with meth and alcohol abuse. It's dangerous, extremely dangerous. And we need to stomp on that fire as fast as we can. I think we need to have a report back to us as soon as possible on short-term action, long-term action. I know I'm using analogies of fire. We have mutual aid. Can we hire PCS, deputy sheriffs back on overtime? Can we bring some back of our own guys on overtime? Can we borrow the guys from the school system for a month or two? I don't know. There's all kinds of things. But we need some information back. We shouldn't be, and I do not want to make the decisions. I want to tell you, I will vote for the resources to get this done. That's really what I want to do. And I think anything short of $200,000 simply isn't going to get it done. Otherwise, I support what you want to do, get some stuff going on. We need some money to get some officers and people on the streets. We need to get some immediate courses of action recommended to us by the mayor and our chief. And we need to also look at the long-term, short-term fixes. So that would be my substitute motion. Substitute to the substitute.
Okay, we'll go to Joel Landine.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't really said much because, this was just added to the agenda tonight. I didn't think paying for a month of security would really, anybody would probably dispute that. I would have serious reservations about spending $200,000 on something that wasn't even noticed on the agenda this evening. I also would worry that that is a knee-jerk reaction to a problem before you really have analyzed what the solution should be. I think that if you want to do something immediately, a month is probably appropriate. The mayor mentioned militarizing or making the downtown seem like a police state. I will just put in my 2 cents. I've seen a lot of downtowns. I was in Minneapolis a couple months ago. They have ambassadors rather than armed security guards, but I can guarantee you that part of those people's job is to make sure that they're watching things and not only to help people who are visitors to downtown. So I would just be cautious that the answer to this is to either have long-term security, it might be, but locking yourself into an answer for the long term. We can send police down there. We've done it. As you heard tonight, if they do it, there's a temporary reprieve and things get better for a while. It's not something we can sustain forever. We are finally starting to look at some long-term solutions to this problem, which is addressing the root of it. And unfortunately, those take time to implement. The chief, people were probably shocked when they heard this gentleman's history and that why is he not in jail? I can tell you why he's not in jail, because there's 500 just like him around town, and if we put them all in jail, we better build another jail just the same size as the one we have now to house them all the time. In fact, Chief Jagras and I had to go talk to the chief judge to because out of the state, they said any of the city ordinance violations were automatic PR bonds, which means they get out on their personal recognizance basically as soon as they're processed. And that was a directive from the state level, and we got a special dispensation to get some of the charges like public consumption and public drunkenness, so that, you know, they would actually have to spend the night in jail. But the reality is when they get to court in the morning, they're let out of jail because there just isn't room to house them. We have made efforts in the past to get people who are repeat offenders jail sentences. Somebody with 21 offenses, we might be able to get 5 days in jail. But as Chief Jagras already pointed out, that's not addressing the problem, because it might address the problem for that individual for 5 days, but when they get out in 5 days, they're right back doing the same things they were doing. So it's not the long-term answer. And frankly, warehousing people in jail is a very expensive way to warehouse them, which is why we are looking at things like the sheriff is with detox and having those places for people who are intoxicated to go. So I don't think there is a quick answer tonight for the long-term solution. I think a task force and taking some time to think about it and discuss some long-term options is good. If you want to take and hire a private security for a month while we stabilize and try to figure out how we proceed moving forward, I don't see an issue with that, because the cost is probably less than what the directors can contract for without council approval. So I'm less worried about it not being on the agenda tonight, and I don't think anyone will challenge it. But if you were to spend a substantial amount of money on an item not on the agenda, I would have concerns about the legality of that.
Okay, thanks. So,
May I reply?
let's do this. This is a complex problem. This has been going on for years. This is not the first time some of these audience members have brought this to the city attention. Every time this comes up, some solution is devised. All comes back to a resource issue, which we've already spoken about. There is a root cause here that is being addressed by the collective impact group, but that is not a quick solution. So we're looking for some type of fast solution here. And I think that, not to doubt the expertise of the council, but I don't think that we're going to come up with in a half hour what we've been trying for years to solve. So perhaps we should do something for the temporary time period, and to get us to the next council meeting, and have an agenda where we can have a little more options to discuss. But it's only going to cost money. And that's the thing that we've all tried to do, to try to build it within our departments. You have an overtime police officer, sheriff's deputy, you got a $35 an hour employee down there standing on a corner. You could pay for a lot of windows for that. So this is very complex. One of the long-term issues is the location of the Hope Center and the mission and some of the services that are there. So this can't be solved that quickly. So we'll go now to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of, I agree with what the city attorney has said and what the mayor has said. Basically, if we're looking for a short-term solution or a short-term effort to try to get the downtown safer, that is within the authority of the mayor and the police chief right now. And it doesn't require, as the city attorney indicated, it's not going to require a sum of money that has to be approved by the city council tonight. The city council is here to take a look at a long-term solution, an intermediate solution. So my recommendation would be simply to allow the mayor and the police chief and staff to bring back recommendations of what they're going to do. That's not to say that I don't think the city council should encourage no action taken tonight, but I clearly heard, or I believe I clearly heard, the mayor and the police chief acknowledge that they need to step up and take care of things in the short term until we can put a more permanent fix in place. I just don't believe that the city council should be trying to decide daily operations on an issue that was just brought before us. By the way, I would also like to, as well as the other council members up here, thank you downtown business owners for bringing this to our attention. We, as Alderwoman Modrick said, we love our city, and sometimes we have rosy red glasses on. We don't see the negative side sometimes because we're in a position that we're usually promoting our city. So we need to hear that we have things that are kind of going off path so that we can bring attention to it. So I do appreciate the downtown business owners bringing this to our attention. I think with a little bit of a notice and notification that we can get things turned back around so that it stops the negative side of it and we start bringing it back to the vibrant downtown that we all want to see, especially with a lot of the activities coming up. But I do want to just add caution that I'm not in favor tonight of trying to put in place a decision and try to mediate this and try to come up with a solution, because I don't think we have all the information. I think we need to research it a little bit more. I think we need to allow the staff to come back to us, tell us what our options are, let us know what the financing is going to be. And again, just to make sure everyone in the audience, because we do have quite an audience here tonight, just to make sure everybody in the audience is very much aware, I believe that the daily staff and the mayor and the police chief can go ahead and contract services up to, I believe it's $25,000. So they've got room to go ahead and start this short-term fix without the city council making a decision tonight. And I think the city council should concentrate on looking at what our options are so that we can actually affect a really good designed, effective, and planned out change rather than a knee-jerk reaction. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Mayor.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quickly, the intent of my original motion was exactly what Alderwoman Scott said. We are not the experts, and we shouldn't pretend that we've put on the uniform and know what it's like and know how to tackle these issues. Our desire is to help in the short term. That was the whole purpose of the task force. I believe in our police chief and our police department. I think teaming with the mayor. The only reason I said task force is I like the idea of involving the business community downtown in some of the discussions at least. But I want to see what the experts say, and I don't want to pretend we have all the answers. I don't want to throw money out willy-nilly. I want a task force to bring back a proposal to us so we can make a smart decision. I just wondered if there's anything we could, a Band-Aid for just for right now. Maybe it's more patrol somehow. I don't know if it's the private security or not, but I just don't like the idea of us thinking that we are the experts. But what we are the experts are, we love Rapid City. We know it's an issue downtown. We all have stories. I mean, I can tell you just 3 stories this last week myself. But I think we need to trust our police department. They're outstanding. I think they will work with the business owners, and so maybe we put that 1-month deadline or something to come up with some short-term gains while we work towards the long-term solutions that we're talking about in the community. And with that, I will yield. Thank you.
Back to Amanda Scott. You guys are timed out.
Thank you, Mayor. Call the question.
It's the same issue. Same subject. What did you say, Amanda?
Call the question.
To order. I think.
Calling the questions out of the order? Okay, what's your point of order?
Point of order is in the queue, and there was a substitute motion made, and during a substitute motion, a person is able to speak again and have the full 5 minutes because it's a new motion.
Your point of order is denied because your rule book says that each of you have 5 minutes on each subject. The subject is the agenda item, not the motion. And if you play out your scenario, you could have 5 substitute motions on one item. We could spend 2.5 hours on one item. You can hear from the city attorney, but I can almost quote the rule.
Well, and I cannot quote the rule at this point, so the mayor is the chairperson of the meeting. I can look at it, and if it's not correct, then we can clarify it before the next meeting. But at this point, I frankly don't even know what the motion on the floor is, so.
The motion is to hire a security guard for a month. Anyone object to Mr. Wright or Mr. Laurenti taking an additional time? Will that set off a wave of more speaking from the dais? Let's go ahead and hear from him then. Mr. Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to briefly, because of the new motion, I just wanted to briefly express my lack of support for that motion, because I do believe your office, Mayor, and the chief can do something immediately right now, and the task force is the long-term fix, which is why my questions were what they were to the police chief, that what can we do right now to stem the problem, since present seems to be the solution during the summer. So I'm hoping that's maybe something we can do. And the type of presence might make the difference, whether they're driving through or whether they're walking through. Biking is a little difficult during the winter months, as we all know. So, but the presence and the type of presence makes a difference when they see a police officer walking down the sidewalk or driving down the street. They're very different types of presence. So I just wanted to say that, and I will not support an immediate expenditure. I believe it's a knee-jerk reaction as well. Thank you.
Jerry Wright.
To correct the record, it's not a knee-jerk reaction to spend, it's to authorize funding to the mayor and the chief to spend if they need, as they need. And it's authorized funding, that's what the intent was. And it was not a quick turn for a long-term fix, it was a means to give them some resources to react as they see fit. And not once did I, and I don't think anyone else on this council, but especially myself, did not direct the mayor or the chief on how to solve this problem. But my concern is in talking to the employees such as Kurtz that I know, who was accosted basically at least twice down there, and I hear about someone getting robbed and told that they're going to get knifed or shot, and there's not even an alarm. I'm concerned. I'm really concerned. So all I want to do in this, my motion, and if you go to 30 days, fine. If we're back in 30 days asking for another $25,000, so what? I don't think that's good management. Give them the money that we need to do and get at it. Let them handle it. I'm not trying to direct what to do. I haven't said once what to do, not once. But we need to give them the resources. And I tell you what, when you start hiring people in overtime, it goes quick. And $25,000 ain't gonna last very long. Not long at all.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to hire a security guard for a month. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion fails 6-2. Did you get that? Okay. Okay, back to the original motion, which is to start a task force on this issue. I'm not going to, if you haven't spoken on this issue, you can speak. The original motion is to hire a task force, to put together a task force to deal with this issue. Is that correct? You, the police chief. We got a second on that motion. 7:30. We're not to item 3 yet. It's going great. So,
can I ask a question for a
Yep.
clarification?
Yep.
When will we get a report? Next summer? Next week? That's not soon enough. Not soon enough.
Personally, I don't think that this would be probably the 14th task force on this issue. This has, in 30 years, I'll guarantee you, the only thing that's changed on this issue is 30 years is the names and faces up here. Everything else is the same. And it is a terribly complicated problem. And so we will try to employ some unusual, different, temporary solution while we bring the hard issues back to the council to solve from a policy standpoint. Policy being expenditures of funds for buildings, temporary or otherwise, additional staffing, additional job descriptions, whatever it may be. But we will do what we can to get water poured on this thing and calm things down.
Can I ask, though, even though I can't speak, when will we hear about, how soon will we hear? Next Legal and Finance, next council, updates, how often?
Let's take care of this motion first. We have a motion to start a task force. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Here.
Well, it sounds like that passes. Who were the yes votes? Modrick? Everyone but one?
Everybody but me.
Okay. Okay, everyone but Roberts and Scott. vote to start the task force. So that's what will be done, and we'll bring back something soon. We won't wait for the task force to be formed to employ the temporary measures. Fair enough? And we'll be in touch. Thank you for coming. Now on to non-public hearing items. Items 3 through 44. We'll open public comment on items 3 through 34. And we have a couple speaker requests, one from Sandy Schwan.
Good evening, I'm Sandy Schwan. I'm sure you're all thinking, why is she here again? I'm the president of Rapid City's downtown Summer Nights, and we're here to speak to you about the event permit process that is before the council tonight on item 31. While in general, we are very much in favor as an organization of a standardized procedure and some standardized processes, we have a couple of concerns about the actual document after reviewing it. Some in general and some specific. The one that I think specifically have some concerns about is that there's a fee structure that's non-refundable. I think a fee structure is actually a good thing. I think that if we're going to have events in our downtown and our park system, there should be some barrier to entrance in terms of a fee. I think if you put a non-refundable fee on the park's permit system, then you discourage new entities from coming forward with new and bright ideas. As you all know, there have been several things that have come forth that have I think made our city a better place to live, that have come out of Leadership Rapid City. Movies Under the Stars, one that's been around for, I think, 25 years now, is the Parade of Lights. And of course, I'm a little biased, but I think that Summer Nights has made Rapid City a better place to live. I think if we had to come forth to the city council, or not the city council, I'm sorry, the Parks Department, and present our permit knowing that we wouldn't get our money back if it was turned down. And of course, it also says you have to present your certificate of insurance at the time of application. If you apply for insurance for an event and the event doesn't get approved, you don't get that money back. So right there, you're looking at several $1,000s just to apply for a permit that you're not going to get back if it gets turned down. And I think that is going to discourage innovation or creativity in our community, and certainly discourage outside entities to come to our town and bring events to our town. And we know that outside influences bring tourists and bring revenue to our city when we have something like Hills Alive, who's not a Rapid City event, come to our town and set up and bring in people from all across the state. The other thing we noticed in the permit process, there's a handbook that gives some guidelines. And as we all know, guidelines sometimes become rules that then become mandates. And some of them are actually good and well thought out, and some are actually a tad bit ridiculous. For example, if you read the permit process, and the recommendation is that for portable toilets, they would recommend that any event that happens in our Parks Department or on the street have 2 porta potties for every 100 people. Well, for Summer Nights, that would equate to 100 or 150 porta potties per week. We currently run the event with about 6,000 average attendance with 18 porta potties. I'm pretty sure we couldn't even get 100 porta potties, let alone pay for them. So I just would like you to continue this item until we can meet with some people who have some experience with events and get those rules clarified. I think the rules are good. I think we'll standardize the procedure for everyone, so everybody will be on the same playing field, but I think we need to look at them before we go forward. Thank you.
Dave Goodwin.
Hey, good evening, Mayor, Council. Dave Goodwin, also representing Summer Nights here, Vice President of Summer Nights. I've been speaking with Dan Sefter and Megan Whitman from Main Street Square today as well, and they asked me to speak on their behalf, asking you to continue the approval of the special event guide. I think it's included in your agenda. There's just too many things on there that are going to put in a lot of roadblocks if it does apply to different events. I think it was aimed at more of the Parks Department and the greenways, but if you read verbatim in the event permit handbook, it will apply to a lot of other events. Like Dan Sefner said today, he'll have 100 kids in the splash pad. Does that need a special event permit? And then you have to go through the 90-day process with the Special Events Committee. So on behalf of Summer Nights and Main Street Square, we just ask you to continue this item. We'd be more than happy to meet with the different department heads that put it together and come up with something. As Sandy said, we're 100% supportive of having a process defined, but I think it needs a little refinement. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And now on the Big Sky, item number 34, Laura. I'm sorry about this. Is it D. Ryder?
I'm Laura DeRuyter, a property owner at Big Sky, and I just want to say we've got 75% of the property owners, so we've got enough saying, yes, we'd like an annex. We need the roads fixed now. It's unacceptable, it's dangerous. We need this to pass, we need it to be part of the city. That's all.
Thank you. Ben?
Makes sense. I think we got the money.
Thank you for letting me speak. We probably would have had closer to 80–85% had not so many of the property owners moved out of the area. And in the wintertime, it's kind of hard to decide what a person's going to say when they come to your house, whether they're going to say, it's so dark, I can't believe how much snow is on your streets, or I can't believe I got here, my car is still in one piece. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then we'll close the public comment on these items, and we'll go to consent items, items 3 through 34. Would the council like to remove any of these items? We'll go to Richard Nordstrom.
Mayor, items 29 and 31.
Gary Wright? Amanda Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. Items number 4 and 5 and 32.
Okay. Any others? And can we have a motion to approve the consent items with the exception of 29, 31, 4, 5, and 32?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Solomon, second by Laurenti. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, on to item number 4, which is a tax increment district set for hearing February 6th, 2017, a request by Doyle Estes and Kathy Johnson for a resolution approving revision number 2 project plan, reallocating project costs for tax increment district number 38 for property described as being located in the southeast quadrant of Elk Vale and Interstate 90. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand item number 4 and 5. We are just setting the hearing for the reallocation of costs for these projects, but I haven't had time to take a look to see what was linked. I'd like to make sure that we have a very, very clear briefing on what we're reallocating for these 2 project costs at that hearing. So I'll support setting the hearing if any other council member would like to make that motion.
I'm sorry, what's the motion? Set the hearing? I'm sorry, I can't understand everybody. Okay, a motion to set items number 4 and 5 for hearing on February 6, 2016, correct? Okay, we have a second by Amanda Scott. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Now on to item 29. To authorize Mayor and Finance Officer to sign 2017 Corporation for National Community Services grant application and accept if awarded. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Mayor, before I make a motion, could I yield the floor to the City Finance Officer?
Yes, you can ask her a question.
Actually, I just need to clarify what we need from you. This is actually to approve with stipulations. If you read the agenda summary, there's stipulations on it because we don't want to accept it if, depending on what the Efficiency Committee comes back as a recommendation. So that contingency was put in the agenda summary.
Mayor, that's my motion.
To go ahead and allow us to apply and accept it, with those contingencies.
Mayor, that's my motion.
Okay,
To approve with stipulations.
to approve with stipulations. And a second by Darla Drew for item number 29. All in favor of that, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Item number 31, approve special event permitting process. And we'll go to Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor, and if I may, I'd like to, Sandy Schwan, if you could come up briefly for me, I'd appreciate it. Sandy, how long would it take to meet with the city on this particular issue and come back with a more serving type of event permit process?
Oh, I think it wouldn't take more than a couple of meetings, so depending on their schedule, we're probably looking at 30 to 60 days to come up with, there's just a few things that just need to be refined. In all, it's a very good plan. There's just a few things that leave some gaping holes that us in Main Street Square would want to make sure that we understand before we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Is there somebody from Parks and Rec that thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Given your schedule, what are we looking at? How long would it take to meet with the individuals and come back with some recommendations as to amendments?
I think we could meet with them and have something by the next council meeting or the next Legal and Finance Committee meeting. I think that we could take care of any questions or concerns just with one meeting between staff and those groups.
Well, I'm just hoping these groups can meet in that short of a period of time, because I'm hearing some spread in time here between Sandy and...
I guess I was just trying to say that it depends on their schedule.
Sure.
Okay, very good.
We'll make time.
Okay, well, I will support a motion by one of my colleagues to bring it back at the next Legal and Finance meeting, and hopefully we can shape this so that it better serves what we're trying to do here in the city. So thank you.
Jerry Wright. Okay, we have a motion to bring it back to the next legal finance meeting. February 15th, postponed to February 15th. Are you guys' mics on?
Turn it on when I'm not talking. Sorry.
Okay. We have a motion to postpone item number 31 to the legal finance on February 15th. And did we have a second? Sorry. Okay, second by Laurenti. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 32, resolution adopting a conflict of interest policy for elected and appointed officials, continued from the December 19th City Council meeting. We'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to continue this to the next Legal and Finance Committee meeting. If I can get a second, I'll explain why.
Second by Jerry Wright. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. The only reason I want to continue this one last time is that there is a consideration before we approve this, whether we want to, how in-depth we want to create signing of forms that would require staffs. And so this meeting's already gone longer than had originally anticipated. So I'd just like to continue this to the next Legal and Finance so that we can have that discussion at that time and make a better recommendation to the full council. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, the motion on the floor then is to move this item to the February 1st Legal and Finance meeting. We'll go to Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, if I may, I'd ask the city attorney a question, please, on this issue.
Yes.
Thank you. Joel, I thought at Legal and Finance we had already established that we were not going to require the form.
I was at another meeting and was not at the Legal and Finance, so I'm not sure what the recommendation was. The form is not part of it. I don't know if some of the council members want to discuss that issue further, or...
I just didn't know if you were wanting to discuss it or if you wanted to have it. At Legal and Finance, we talked about not including it in the motion. I don't think it is part of the particular agenda item. I think it was just a suggestion from the city attorney's office, and I think when we questioned it at Legal and Finance, they really didn't have a strong feeling either way.
Well, I mean, I provided an email to the council members regarding kind of a pros and cons. I didn't take a position on it. It was certainly identified as something that you could incorporate into the ordinance. It is not currently incorporated into the draft or part of the draft. It was highlighted as an option for you to consider that could be incorporated into the draft. So if you approved the resolution tonight without specifically including that, it would not be incorporated into it.
I already spoke, so if somebody wants to make a substitute motion to do that, maybe we can get this approved and have it added later if somebody deems it necessary.
Okay, we'll go to Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a substitute motion to approve as written without the additional clause as recommended by Legal and Finance, and to look to approve that tonight.
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Steve Laurenti. On the substitute motion, we'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one question for the city attorney, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Joel, on the revised edition of this, can I ask you why, if we were seeking your advice and you gave us an opinion, why that opinion wouldn't be made public? Why it would be kept secret?
Well, I mean, I don't think it should be unusual that advice I give you of a legal nature is confidential unless the council waives the privilege. So generally, it isn't up to an individual member of the body to waive the privilege. It's up to the group to waive the privilege. You know, ironically, I did try to make it so rather than have it be a confidential communication between the individual member and the board, the rest of the board has access to the opinion. I did that for a couple of reasons. One, if I advise somebody that I believe a conflict is in violation of the policy and they would choose to ignore it, it makes it much more difficult for that person to then participate in the item anyway, if they know the rest of the board is aware of that. But I also think that, you know, when these questions come up, that it's beneficial to the rest of the board to see the response and the rationale and the reasoning so that they can understand conflicts better when their own conflicts come up. I think by not making it confidential, you also potentially discourage people from asking for opinions, because if they know that it'll be disseminated publicly, they may not choose to ask for an opinion. And I think we want to do whatever we can to encourage people to ask for an opinion so they make the right decision.
I guess, long enough explanation, Joel. I think that my concern is if you do give us an opinion and it goes to all members of the council, how do we keep from that not falling within the open meetings law? Because it's my understanding once something goes to everyone on the council, it becomes a part of the open meetings law through the state of South Dakota.
No, I give you confidential opinions all the time that are not part of, just because the only reason we divide up our messages to the council is because sometimes when email was a new tool and we would start sending out emails, people would reply all and there would be a conversation about an item occurring online that we did feel was a violation of the open meetings laws. But for me to communicate, whether it's through email or regular mail, to provide you a written
I guess you just haven't convinced me that this shouldn't be a part of the open meetings. If somebody asks your opinion on this matter because we believe somebody has a conflict of interest, or we ourselves may have a conflict of interest, or think we may have a conflict of interest, I don't know why it would have to be kept secret. I guess in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I believe, you know, as a public servant, as working for the people of Rapid City, we should do as much of our business in the public as we can. So anyway, thank you, Joel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There's a substitute motion. to approve this without the additional stipulation or the form, and with no changes to the secrecy clause, correct? Okay. Then all in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. Motion passes with one no. Okay, now moving past consent. On to Community Planning and Development Services Department. No, that's wrong.
No, that's
I'm sorry.
on to public
I'm getting mixed up tonight because of all the stuff going on. We're on to non-consent items, items 35 through 45. We have, we'll open public comment, and we have a couple speaker request forms, starting with Tony Marshall.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Tony Marshall. I'm president of Park Hill Development. And tonight I'm not seeking approval for a TIF. I'm seeking approval of some items that I need your blessing on in order to actually submit a full TIF application for a project over in Southeast Rapid City that I've owned for some time and has been an enigma on how to develop it. And I've met with some of you folks this week. Thank you for your time, and others I've communicated via email. And others have seen my legal and finance presentation, so I'm going to try not to repeat a bunch. But as you can see, for those that are not familiar with this, this is Highway 79 right here. This location right here is the Highway 79 overpass over these railroad tracks. I've developed this project over the last 15 years. As a residential townhome and single-family subdivision. As you can see, bordering Highway 79 right here is an area that's zoned light industrial. Those folks have been there for a long, long time. And as you can see, I've been collecting some things. And I don't want to speak too negatively about these folks because there's good people that operate these businesses, right? And they're good businesses. And they've been more than supportive of what we're trying to do next door. But this is one of those infill sites in Rapid City. There's a handful of them, and there's good reason why these sites haven't been developed over the years. There's some issues. And I'll speak to one of these issues, and that happens to be the view that I'll have from this site right here is what I'm going to develop, Hope 2. And the problem is that I have the views from these residential units would be views of this, which doesn't give me a very marketable product, okay? So in order to mitigate that, one of the things that I would like to include in the TIF is a landscaping allowance. Because due to the topographical variations of this site, a 6-foot privacy fence isn't going to cure the view of this. It's going to take significant landscaping, staggered landscaping, and that's going to take a lot of money. So I'd love to get into the details with your approval tonight, and once I'm able to submit the full TIF application. So a no tonight, a no vote, really stops me dead in my tracks on doing anything with this site. A yes vote tonight simply allows me the chance to submit my TIF application and go through that lengthy process that you all can vet and scrutinize this project. So I'm asking for a further chance for you guys to scrutinize this project with a yes vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's actually, my name is Cale McNabo. I'm the,
sorry.
That's a tough one, I know. The first and last name together are a mouthful. I am the design engineer of record for Park Hill Subdivision. I'm here to address some of the questions that came up at the legal and finance meeting, just provide some additional clarification. Particularly the two items that came up were regards to the soils analysis and slope stability. I want to assure you that through the design process and the development engineering plan application that's submitted and vetted through Public Works and their design engineers, That soils information has been provided. The site was drilled by American Engineering. They provided all that, basically the soil borings, the recommendations during construction, pavement design, those typical issues that are addressed through our subdivision plan approval. The slope stability analysis, we've also contracted with American to provide that information as well. That will be submitted in conjunction with the renewed development engineering plan application. We have some modifications to the plan, and it's going to go back through the Public Works staff for additional review and approval. And that's really all I have for today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cale. Now, Eric Braun. Item 43.
Yes, thank you. Coincidentally, we are here on item 43 with a similar request to ask permission to add some costs that aren't allowed by the TIF statutes to be included in a forthcoming TIF application if the council will agree tonight. What we're looking to do is build a workforce housing development along East St. Charles Street and Creek Drive behind the Poly Subs that is along East St. Patrick Street. We think that this would take the form of a two-phase project, 4 buildings total, 123 units over the 2 phases, and we're targeting starting our rents at $625 for 1-bedroom apartments. This request tonight is for permission to allow TIF funds to be used for land acquisition, on-site professional fees, and on-site drainage and utility improvements. Now, number 4 in the purposes of TIF financing in the guide that's on the city's website for applicants is to stimulate the construction of safe and affordable housing units for low and moderate income residents and workers in the community. But the allowable costs in TIFs, they prioritize new development, they prioritize public improvement, new roads, new pipes under those roads, all of those things which create ongoing maintenance costs for the city. We have infill development sites that may not have those public parts to the project, but are more easily maintained by the city going forward. Now, we're looking to build this project for an underserved part of our workforce, people making $12 to $20 an hour. There are a lot of those jobs in this community. And unfortunately, I don't think they have a lot of options for safe and affordable housing that keep their housing costs from 25 to 30% of their income. And that means that they are stuck in places where they either may not have something that they like or something that they can get out of. If you're up in the 50 to 60% of income going to your housing, you don't have the mobility. You don't have the next place. You're worried about making this month. So then the question is, why hasn't this been done? Well, cost is the factor. New buildings cost a lot to build. We're no different than anybody else. That's why we're looking for a little bit of help from the city, and we'd be back here with a TIF application if you grant us this request tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And that'll close our public comment period on these items, and it'll take us to item number 35 under ordinances. 35 is first reading ordinance 6154, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by Steve Winya for rezoning from general commercial district to light industrial district for property generally described as being located at 1300 East Center Street. Committee recommendation was to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Scott, second by Laurenti. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 36, first reading ordinance 6155, an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for A&J Meyer LLC for a rezoning from general agricultural district to light industrial for property generally described as being at the northwest terminus of Seeger Drive between Dias and Elkvale Road. Committee recommendation was to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Scott and second by Roberts. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Those opposing, say no. Motion carries. Item 37. Yeah. Item 37 is to approve introduction and first reading of ordinance 6153, and ordinance to amend provisions concerning permitting for parades and special events by amending Chapter 1220 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. The recommendation from committee was to approve. We'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask the city attorney a question, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Joel, Carla? Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So my only question on this one is, does this need to be continued, or because it is in relationship to the new event application resolution? Should this be continued in alignment with that resolution?
I think you could. I think you could also move it forward since an ordinance takes a little more time anyway. The items that were reflected in public comment that there were concerns about are not specifically addressed in the ordinance. They involve details that are in the permit or the policy that is being continued for a month. But the issues that they were addressing here are not specifically referenced in the ordinance. So I feel like I could go forward. A continuance wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either.
Well, I know in the past it's also been recommended that if the city council, if a member up here wants to make the motion to approve this one, we could always hold second reading to be in conjunction with the same time that the resolution is passed.
You could do that too.
Thank you for those answers.
Okay, we're still, item 37 is without a motion. Motion to approve from Jerry Wright, second by Jason Solomon. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. That takes us on to Community Planning and Development Services Department items, and we'll go to Darla Drew.
Item number 38, a request by NeighborWorks Dakota Home Resources for Dakota Land Trust for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 5 and common area of Village on Monroe, generally described as being located at 612 Dilger Avenue. Recommendation approved with stipulations.
Second. Okay, we have a second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item 39, a request by Abel and Associate Architects, PC, Mark Abel, for Tyler Oliver, Kobe 216 LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 2A and 2B of John Roberts subdivision, generally described as being located in the southwest corner of East St. Patrick Street and Cherry Avenue. Recommendation approved with stipulations.
Second. Okay, we have a second by Richie Nordstrom, and we'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that I have no interest in this. It's a different John Roberts. I wanted to make sure I wasn't in the 2 cents tomorrow for voting on something that belonged to me. So thank you very much.
Your disclaimer won't stop that from happening. Okay, we have a motion to approve 39, and who's in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Item
40.
Okay,
Sorry,
item
go
40, a request by Davis Engineering for Duninick Brothers and Gilchrist Land Company for a preliminary subdivision plan for Lot A of Patrick Foley Addition, generally described as being located on the east side of Highway 79, 2.5 miles south of the Rapid City landfill. Recommendation approved with stipulations.
Second. Okay, we have a second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Takes us on to Legal Finance Committee items, and we'll go to our Legal Finance Committee Chair, John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 41, authorize mayor and finance officer to sign assignment agreement for tax increment district number 78 between Yasmin Dream LLC, Bank West, and the City of Rapid City, and I recommend approval.
Second by Jerry Wright. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. No. Motion passes with one no from Steve Laurenti. Next item, please.
Item 42, request from Tony Marshall for city council authorization to allow tax increment financing funds to be used for landscaping, grading, and excessive excavation cost for anticipated Park Hill residential TIF. And I am going to make no recommendation at the moment.
Okay, we'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Mr. Dale Tech a question or two, please?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Dale, on this one, in listening to the applicant asking for pre-authorization from the city council to allow increment funds to be used for landscaping, grading, and excessive excavation cost, it seems like I heard him say that if the city council approved this at this time, the city council could then, once he applies for his TIF application, could remove these items from that TIF application based on it? Or if the city council is giving pre-authorization, does it become part of the TIF application in totality?
What Mr. Marshall is requesting are items that he mentioned are not allowed by our policy to be TIF costs. So the city council has to pre-approve those before he can make an application and actually request then that TIF funding be spent on those items.
So, oh, okay. May I redirect that question to the city attorney, Mayor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello,
Thank-
Joel.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I mean, look, it allows them, as Dale said, it allows them to put it on the application. The TIF committee would review that portion of the application just like they review the rest of the application, and they could decide either to not approve the TIF or to remove that, although I think Mr. Marshall has indicated if they were, and you know, that it would pretty much end his TIF. So, I mean, that's a risk on him. If you give him permission to make that application, he makes it, and they then remove it, you know, he would have to just go through the regular process. But just because you're allowing him to add it does not then bind the TIF committee to approve that portion of it.
Okay, thank you, Joel. That's what I wanted to know, because I appreciate the pictures and the images that Mr. Marshall provided us. A picture is worth 1,000 words, because looking at that, I can understand why you'd want some landscaping and stuff. But I was one of those that I wasn't able to meet with you before tonight's meeting, but we did converse in an email, and I told you really where my focus is on affordable housing. So I didn't hear a whole lot about what your whole TIF application would represent. So I would be in favor of allowing this so that he could apply for his TIF, but I want it on record. I may not support the actual TIF when it comes forward, because there's a lot of other questions I have with that TIF application. Thank you, Mayor.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, who shall I take this one to? I've got a question. I'll take my question to Dale if I could.
Yes.
And Dale, on the TIF that we've got before us and the next one after that, it's a line to say that it's not allowed in the TIF, and yet it can be presented to us now. Has this been done before in the 78 previous TIFs at some point, and had those gone through the process? Or is this out of the normal? Is this something new coming before us now in TIFs?
I don't know that I know the history of all of our 70-plus TIFs. I would expect that this has been done in the past. I think it is fairly unusual to do, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So with that, one of the things that I see this, of course, TIFs was designed long ago in order to find blighted areas from within the community and revitalize or generate eventually something on the tax rolls. And this project is one of those. It's in an area that really takes a brave developer to consider bringing this in. It's also, in my discussion with Mr. Marshall, was that it is in the affordable side of it. It's looking at it for affordable elderly housing. That's the design that's been going on up there along that ridge, the Park Hill Ridge. So it is a different type of affordable opportunities for those that are either downsizing or they need to downsize. So it still falls into affordable housing, not maybe low income, but certainly not medium income as well. So it puts that challenge on us as we're considering this. if that is going to assist. And then buffering zones between commercial, industrial, and residential is also very valuable and important. So I think we need to consider that as well. But I do like what Councilwoman Amanda Scott stated, and is that if this goes forward, then it may come back and we'll have bigger discussions ahead after it hits committee, the TIF committee.
Okay, Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, I'd like to ask Dale Tech a question, please, on this.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Tech, I just wanted to get a feel for staffs. I assume you'll be able to give the TIF committee an assessment, or a representative from the city will be able to give the city an assessment of, and I see excessive grading costs. Is that something that the city staff will be able to evaluate and provide for us at TIF committee level?
Yes, once the applicant submits the backup, if you will, to his request, we can evaluate that and provide an opinion on the request. It's too early at this point in time to give an opinion on that.
Agreed, yeah. I just wanted to make sure, because I sit on the TIF committee, and for Mr. Marshall and Mr. Lettner, I just want you to know that I have no problem with you coming forward at this point. I mean, because I am like Amanda Scott, and I believe Jerry Wright is the same mindset, is that, and I sit on the TIF committee, so what I'll be looking for is not the adjectives of excessive grading costs, but I'm going to want to know exactly the costs. And so I'm sure that you'll be able to provide those. I'm not saying that because it's anything other than you'll probably be providing that anyway. But I just wanted to let you know that when it comes to the TIF committee level, that what we're going to be looking for as far as those costs are concerned. I've never been in front of a TIF applicant that said that they couldn't do it without a TIF, so that doesn't have any sway with me. But I just wanted to let you know what we'll be looking for at committee level to make sure that this is going to meet the criteria for a TIF, because you're asking for exceptions that nobody, as far as I know, has received. So it's going to be a high threshold. I just want you to know that. So thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last TIF that I can think of off the top of my head that asked for excessive grading was the Highway 16 TIF. And just off the top of my head, I can't think of any more right now. When we get to the next one, I can bring up some more TIFs where we did things like they're asking for on them. I want to thank Mr. Marshall for bringing this forward. This is a difficult infill piece of property to develop. And we have these properties all over Rapid City, and I think that it's going to be important going into the future if we want to help develop these infill pieces. We're going to have a choice. We're going to either, as a city, have to help somewhat, or we're going to have to let them stay vacant until, you know, some point, I suppose, it's going to get, there'll be so little property that property you'll be able to develop, maybe. And that's, in my mind, that's a big maybe. But, you know, I think this shows a lot of forward thinking to be able to bring this in, try to get this piece developed. It's on one of the main cores coming into Rapid City. It's going to help make that hill look better over there on that side. I think that, you know, one of the questions that was asked was, what can we do along the way? Well, we can make changes in the TIF committee, we can make changes at the Planning Commission, we can make changes at the City Council. So this isn't set in stone. You know, we still need to see what Mr. Marshall's going to bring forward. He still needs to put the numbers together for his TIF to see if it's even going to work. I mean, we're just at the very beginning of this, and I think at the very least we should give him the opportunity to come forward to show us what he's proposing. So I am going to support this one. Thank you very much.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to add too much more to what was already been said, but I agree. This is very close to where I live, and it's one of those areas that I get to see the four seasons, not just what we saw in tonight's pictures. And I agree with Mr. Marshall about the view. it is very concerning for me as far as the people going to be on the east side of this development to take a look at that. So when he comes forward with this proposal and actually come forward with some solid costs, then I'll be able to take a better look at this. But right now, I'm going to support this motion because at this point, I see where the assistance is needed, and so, Mr. Marshall, I can really support what you're trying to do. So, good luck.
I don't think so.
Yield.
Jerry Wright.
We don't have a motion, do we? And I'd like to make a motion to allow the landscaping, grading, and excessive excavation costs for anticipated Park Hill residential be included in their TIF.
Second. Okay, we have a second by Amanda Scott. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item, please.
Item 43, request from James Letner for City Council authorization to allow tax increment financing funds to be used for land acquisition, on-site professional fees for architecture, mechanical, electrical engineering, structural engineering and soils, and on-site drainage and utility improvements for anticipated East St. Charles Street affordable housing TIF. And I am not going to make a recommendation on this one either.
Okay, we'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. If Mr. Eric Braun would entertain a question or two?
Of course.
Thank you. You know, you were giving your briefing, and I was trying to write some notes because your item on the agenda specifies affordable housing. And Eric, I missed it. I didn't hear. How much are you thinking that these units are estimated to go? I mean, I know you still have to do your whole TIF application, but I believe you had stated some type of monthly rent.
$625 a month for the, I guess we're looking at two types of units. One with washer and dryer included in the unit at $680, one without at $625. And we don't have the ratio down right now, but say half-half. You know, so there will be a common laundry room for those that don't have laundry in the unit.
So this is an apartment complex, or is it?
Yep,
it is an
they'd be
apartment
one-bedroom
complex.
apartments.
Yep. And so on the utilities, will the utilities be included in this monthly rent?
Heat would be included, electric and communications would be the tenant's responsibility. We'd have water, garbage, I don't know if there'd be, well, gas for the heat. We'd have the gas. Landlord would have the gas. It'd just be electric and communications if desired for the tenants.
All right. And then you also, I believe what I wrote down was for the full project, because you mentioned 2 phases, but a total of 123 units. Did I hear
Yes.
that correctly? 4 buildings?
Yes.
And so out of that, roughly, you said half and half with the, between the washer and dryer, and then the other half not having the washer and dryer between 680 and 625. But what are the units? Are they all 2-bedroom? Are they 1-bedroom?
All 1-bedroom.
All 1-bedroom.
And the idea is to create a smaller space that is very livable, but between 500 and 600 square feet. You know, and that's unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your outlook, you can't build a 1,400 square feet and rent it for those prices.
No, and I'm finding out that a lot of our younger members in our community that are just looking for these affordable housing just because they're starting with their first jobs, or they're starting, and doing the couple jobs, they're not looking for 1,200 square feet. They are looking for...
No, I have a much smaller apartment complex that I just recently leased, and the first 2 units leased were under 700 square feet. Those are the most demand I had, the most questions I got, and I was asking much more than $625 a month.
Yeah, and so I really am excited about this, Eric, because this affordable number, even if it's a 1-bedroom, basically if you're looking at 2 people sharing that cost, it makes it a lot more affordable. So, and then if it's just the one person, I did run the numbers because you had mentioned $12 an hour to $20 an hour. I used the $12, and your math is spot on because it came out to $624 would be 30% of their gross income at $12 an hour. So I do think that this qualifies. So thank you very much, and I'm in favor of at least allowing you to participate and go forward with your TIF application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be abstaining from this vote due to a professional relationship with one of the applicants.
Duly noted. John Roberts.
Thank you, and I don't have to abstain. My name isn't on this one. But anyway, I have one question for you, Eric. I think you are bringing forward a very interesting, very neat concept. My question is, though, I think the last affordable housing TIF Rapid City did, and believe it or not, we did with lots, and I believe it was TIF 54, but it was up north in North Rapid, and we had put a limit on the cost of those lots for the life of the project. So I guess my question is, this being an affordable housing TIF, how are you going to guarantee that you're not going to rent it for 1 year and then say, we're not making enough money, so we're going up to $750? How are you going to guarantee that affordability in this project for this TIF?
You know, there's a description in the TIF guide, and I apologize if I quote something wrong here, but I believe that there's a requirement for keeping the rent structure for 10 years that's talked about, as well as we'd have to come up with a means of, to qualify for that designation, the tenants need to be, 51% of the tenants need to be at 80% of the median income for this area. So I'm big picturing the numbers here, but I'm confident of that 51 of 80, and I think that line is about $38,000. And I'm sure that moves, you know, as the income in the area moves, but I believe we would have to do essentially provide documentation to the city of that.
Well, thank you, Eric. That is my number one concern on this, that it does stay affordable. You know, I do have some other concerns about this. It's a long process. You know, you've been through the TIF process, and things can change going in and out of it. You know, and we have done TIFs like this where we have given the land acquisition costs, and we have given, you know, a lot of different things here. One of my concerns on this one is, are we giving too much? Have you really nailed down what that figure is you need to be able to keep? Is that the figure that you need? Well, I shouldn't even ask that, because you're not going to know until you come forward with some of your costs in the TIF proposal. So, you know, but I do want to state it up front right now that I have some concerns, because this is a little different than what we've done before. This is a very easily developable lot. You know, you've got new roads on two sides of it. You've got infrastructure, 2 lot lines. So it's a little different than the ones that or the one that I can think of off the top of my head, where we paid for the land acquisition costs, because we had to tear down a motel and we had to, you know, do a lot of different things there. So anyway, I do want to give you the opportunity to go forward with this TIF. I want to see all your numbers. I want to see how it's going to work, and I want to see how you're going to be able to keep it affordable for the next decade. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jerry Wright.
I make a motion to allow land acquisition on-site professional fees for architecture, mechanical and electrical engineering, structural engineering and soils, and on-site drainage and utility improvements for the anticipated East St. Charles Street affordable housing be included in their TIF.
Okay, we have a second by Richie Nordstrom. Go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason I'm supporting this is because of the affordable housing aspect of it. But, Mr. Braun, a question for you is just to give you a heads up for a concern that I have is the number of units, the 123 units, and I just don't want to, you don't have to answer this tonight, but just give you a heads up, because one of the things to look at in the future is, for me, this is a large number of concentration of people in a small area. So I'm very concerned about the environment that these people are going to be living in as a community, so that we don't have any enforcement involved. Law enforcement has to come over and visit this area frequently, and so that's just a concern that I have. So just to give you a heads up on it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve item 43. As noted, all in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 44, please.
Item number 44, authorize mayor and finance officer to sign an agreement with the Center for Public Safety Management for a comprehensive analysis of the Rapid City Fire and EMS services, and I recommend approval.
Okay, we have a second by Jerry Wright, and we'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this is a question for you or interim fire chief, but Chief Jaggeris mentioned that when they go through their accreditation, they go through a review process. Is anything like that done with an accreditation with the fire department?
I'll refer to the acting fire chief, Rod Seals.
Yeah, that's one thing that we have that we've launched into is getting accredited to the Center for Public Safety Excellence, which is not anything connected with the Center for Public Safety Management. And doing this study is going to catapult us into that accreditation process. I know many of you have had concerns as to what the cost of this study is, and I can say that it's going to also check a lot of boxes for us as we continue on with that accreditation process, and really give us a good fit of where we are today and those improvements that we can make that will help speed up that accreditation process through the Center for Public Safety Excellence.
Okay. That's all for now. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to support the motion, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that this is different from the ISO. And so this is a whole separate process, different from the ISO process. And if he needs further explanation on it, the acting chief can explain that.
Okay. Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd also like to ask a couple of questions of the acting chief, if I may, please.
Yes.
On this particular analysis, and I appreciate the launch into this accreditation, not necessarily my concerns, but after reading the deliverables, because this is an area that I worked in Six Sigma and process improvement, so I'm very familiar with these processes and the data gathering. And my question to you is, and maybe you're not as familiar with it, but my question to you is, after reading the deliverables, we're getting these reports where they're crunching data. Is there going to be recommendations for change in the department?
You know, I had those same concerns, and I've read 3 of the studies they've done recently on other areas around the nation. The one most notable was Tulsa, Oklahoma. To tell you a little bit of how comprehensive these studies are, that study out of Tulsa was 182 pages long. It's going to be the same type of study they're going to do for the Rapid City Fire Department. And that study with Tulsa came with 40 recommendations. And it's kind of indicative of what they do is they certainly come forward with recommendations to either stop doing this, start doing that, continue doing this, best practices across the country.
So when they do that, my question to you is, how are the improvements going to be maintained? Who's going to be the process owner of the new adopted recommendations? Who's going to own that? That's my concern, is we're going to spend $62,500 plus travel costs, which was my next question. But my question to you is, how will these recommendations be, one, instituted? Because anybody who's been on this council for a while, we've done a lot of studies with the downtown specifically, and enacted roughly 0 of some of those studies. some of the stuff we have, but very little of it. So that's my concern here, is that we're going to pay $62,000 plus travel costs, which I assume are going to be pretty steep in it themselves. At least probably half of that $62,500 is my guess. But how will we institute these recommendations? Because ultimately what you're saying to me and what I'm reading in the deliverables is that it's really just going to be up to us. They're going to give us the recommendations. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to institute them.
Correct.
So how is this valuable for the taxpayer to spend this money on this study? That's my question.
I think it's kind of twofold. In the fire department, we are anticipating our next strategic plan to be coming pretty soon. And I think that you roll these recommendations not only into that strategic plan so that the fire department is accountable for making those happen, but also, as I said, catapulting into that accreditation process. That accreditation process, as much as the police department can probably attest to, is that's not a one-time thing. Once you become accredited, then it's a constant improvement to stay accredited. And so I think those two areas right there are going to come with that accountability that you're looking for on those recommendations.
So do we have a feel for the cost? Because beyond the $62,500 is the cost of travel of this particular group to do this study. Do we have any ballpark figure of that?
Travel?
Yeah, because travel was not inclusive of the study, so I just wondered if we had, sounds like the city attorney may have some input.
I think we amended the contract to include up to $6,000 in travel. That was an up to. They will provide us with the invoices for the travel, and we will reimburse them for their actual expenses. But in order for it to be a valid contract, we wanted it to be an amount not to exceed. So they did the $62,000, I believe, was the contract base price, and then there was an additional up to $6,000 for 2 people to travel. Well, cost. In fact, I thought that was pretty.
No. I assumed it would be much higher than that over this time period, and I don't know how often they have to visit the site, but I assume we're providing them data electronically. I mean, they're not doing a lot of on-site if it's only $6,000 in travel.
Correct. The site visit is typically about 3/4 of the way through the project. After that data, all the data has been sent electronically back and forth, and all of that's been vetted out. Then they do a site visit to come and put their eyes on not only the uniqueness of our town and the topography that we run into as far as when we're looking at response times and that, but to really get a feel for everything that's going on.
And the cost center that we're using to fund this from, that doesn't leave them short in any way, shape, or form? We're okay in that particular area?
That money is in the wildland fund, and that money is in the bank.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Back to Richie Nordstrom.
Mayor, just a follow-up question, if I may, to the chief. Mr. Seals, is there any other comparisons such as this study is going to be done to, say, for example, another city is Flagstaff? You were reciting Tulsa. Have you got an idea of what those costs were for those cities?
I don't know those costs for those cities, but in looking at the proposal, it appears that this cost is a standard cost for this type of study.
So in other words, we're landing about in the middle of what the costs are for these types of studies. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, the motion on the floor is for approval of item 44. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Takes us on to staff items, items 45, update on the Sauk Rapid City. We'll go to Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let you know that I had reported last time that the Sauk Rapid City folks were not going to be drawing the complete loan of $250,000, and it ended up being about $74,000, $75,000. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I received a check earlier this week, and they have paid that in full, so there is no more loan outstanding.
Okay.
So kudos to the fundraisers for getting all that done, so they didn't, number one, have to borrow everything that they thought they were going to need to, and then number two, paying us back right away.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge that, and congratulations to Soccer Association.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to acknowledge. All that want to acknowledge, say aye. Okay, item is acknowledged. There's no reason to open and close a public hearing on item 46. There's no speaker request forms. We'll go right to 46. The Green Bean LLC DBA Harriet Cafe, 329 Main Street, Suite 2, for a retail on-off sale wine license. Motion to approve by Scott, second by Laurenti. All in favor of that motion say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 47 is the bill list, and we'll go back to Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $3,572,750.80.
Okay, motion to approve by Laurenti, second by Solomon. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Any objections to adjourning? Second, we're adjourned.